Buonasera a tutti e benvenuti. Un saluto anche a tutti gli amici che ci stanno
Good evening,
seguendo
and
dal web.
welcome to all those who are online following.
Word icon and choose your favorite language, English or Portuguese. Invece per gli amici colleghi che sono qui oggi in presenza, noi ovviamente parleremo in italiano.
For those who are here, well, we will use Italian as a language, but you have the headset for translation. I'm very happy to introduce you to this pilot project right after the World Day for Biodiversity, because the aim of this project is to protect biodiversity and, on the other hand, to fight against poverty, especially for the people living in Brazil in the states of Maranhão and Pará. Sofidel was involved directly in this project. Sofidel is one of the most important manufacturing companies producing rotolori in Regina. It operates in Europe and in the United States, and it had this project with Suzano. It is one of the most important companies in the world for the production of cellulose, and it's one of the main suppliers of Sofidel. And with them, there is a Brazilian party in the project. That is IABS, the Italian Institute for Development Sustainability. It is similar to what we have in Italy for the promotion of the 17 goals for sustainability for 2030. And then there is also Amazônia Onlus, an association that was born 20 years ago. It was founded by an Italian biologist that went there to the Amazonia area and fell in love with those places. And I think that her contribution is still very important today for this project that is starting today, kicking off today. But I don't want to take too much time. I just want to tell our friends on Zoom and in the room that at the end of the presentation of the project, it will be possible to ask questions. So if you are online on Zoom, you can use the Q&A function. If you're here, you can ask questions and we will try and give you answers. But this is all. Let's have a look at a video presenting what we're about to talk about.
Planting a more sustainable future for the future generations depends on the actions we practice today. It requires to review our habits, innovate with sustainability, taking care of people, fauna, and the planet. That's why Suzano, the largest pulp producer of the world, joined forces with Sofidel, one of its key clients, to develop a pilot project that will promote the conservation of native forests forming biodiversity corridors, besides the support of local communities' socio-economic development in the Amazon region in Brazil. Besides the partnership among the two companies, the project, Together We Plant the Future, will also involve other important parties, such as the public agents, rural producers, farmers, and local communities, with the purpose to conserve local native forests and to transform lives of the people in the Amazon region. The biodiversity corridors contributes to the connection of about 2,210 square kilometers of native forest, and it will be home and passage for local fauna. In addition to that, the project will benefit more than 1,400 families who live on the border of these areas by creating initiatives focused on income generation, implementing agroforestry systems, and sustainable extractivism of native fruits. Suzano and Sofidel united to plant the future of the next generations.
Together we plant the future. Insieme si possono fare grandi cose. E allora iniziamo a conoscere.
Together we plant the future. So let us start getting to know the protagonists of this project, starting from Paulo project, the European representative of Suzano. And then in Brasilia, there is Eric Sawyer, Council President at IABS. Hi, Eric. We will get to you in minutes. And then the heart of the Amazonia with Emanuela Evangelista, the biologist that founded Amazônia Onlus. And it was really raining cats and dogs there when we talked to her a few minutes ago. We hope that everything will go fine. And then there is Andrea Piazzolla, which is in charge of global purchases. Sofidel. So I'm going to start talking with you. We are quite, emotional today because it's like the tip of the iceberg, because there's a lot of work that has been carried out so far. And so we are quite emotional and we want to tell about this project. Sofidel has been working hard for sustainability and forestry and biodiversity protection. But this project, how was it born? Well, first of all, I hope I don't get too emotional, too moved, because while I was changing clothes, I was thinking of this project. I think it's one of the most beautiful things that I've done in my life, really. Because, it's related to people. And it's the most beautiful from a professional point of view, but also from a private point of view. And so I don't know if I will get too emotional. Please forgive me. Let's give him a big round of applause, because, it's not just a matter of work, it's really life. Yes, Paulo is a friend of mine. He is here. And we had this idea a few months ago with Suzano. Suzano is one of our main suppliers, as you were saying. And for quite a long time, we had been looking for a common project to work together. And we finally found it. It was Suzano that proposed the project in the areas of Maranhão and Pará in Brazil, where Suzano operates. The project is wonderful because it requires also a social involvement, a social commitment. There will be 1,400 families supported in these areas because, they have the livelihood thanks to their animals, their vegetable gardens for their own consumption. And we will try to help them, to support them with an agricultural economy that is more sustainable and that maybe allows them to have more diversity in their diet and some economic return as well. And all those who will be close to these biodiversity corridor will help preserve this part of the territory. So I'm really, really happy for that. Sorry for interrupting, but I really felt the passion for this project that you share with Suzano and with Paulo. Also because, people will really be the milestones in the territory, and they will be fundamental for implementing the 70th goal of the 2030 agenda. Well, yeah, it's fundamental. It's really the multiplier of all our efforts. And why Suzano? Well, I have been collaborating with Suzano for 20 years. The first time I went to Brazil and I signed the first agreement, I saw their factory. It was 2006. I still had hair. And I didn't need to, have a beard to balance the lack of hair. And Suzano was already an important producer. I don't know if Paulo was born at that time. And Sofidel was still growing. We had been expanding. 20 years after, I'm bald. I have no hair. And Suzano has become leader in the world in the production of cellulose. And Sofidel has grown too, and has become the second tissue producer in Europe. What's nice about this is that we have been growing while sharing the same values. Sofidel strongly believes in some projects, and but I don't want to dwell too much on those ones, but just to mention some elements. We have been climate savers with the WWF. We are part of the Targets Initiative for the CO2 emissions and their reduction. We have been investing a lot in energy efficient measures. We have signed contracts for buying renewable energies, and we hope to have 84% of the energy we use coming from renewable sources by 2030. We're also focused on water consumption, and 96% of the water we use is also recycled and reused. And then the suppliers. This is something that, well, I really hold dear in a way, because we are trying to change a little bit the supply chain and, focus on those values. So long-term collaboration has built trust, and that's where the project came from. We, went out. Very often, companies are very, self-centered. We have all these goals of sustainability, CO2 reduction, but we are sometimes too much focused on the companies, whereas we should go beyond and look at the multiplier effect, the booster that allow us to make results even bolder and more important. So it was really like, expanding our relationship, and that's how we decided to work in Brazil. It's for sure a first step. My communication director often repeats, there are plenty of problems in the world, but we have to start somewhere, and this is something tangible that we are doing here. So we hope that we can also be an example for others, and we also hope that maybe others will join the project or will follow on our paths, doing something similar for a better future for the planet and the people living on this planet. Well, I cannot but share this hope. And as for your hair, well, that's another topic. But in a while, we will get to Paulo. But before, in Brasilia, we have Eric Sawyer from IABS, because this association will play a fundamental role. It will be a partner implementing the project on the field. So Eric, there he is on our screen. Hi, Eric.
Hello, Chiara. Hello, Paulo. Hello, Andrea. Thank you very much. And thank you.
Thank you for being with us today. So, Eric, could you explain the people who are with us what IABS is, what you do, and how you can promote the preservation of forests and at the same time improve people's lives?
Absolutely. Yes, of all the problems, I'm very thankful that Sofidel has decided to start somewhere, and this somewhere is with us, because together we do believe that we can plant a better future. So first of all, I'd like to thank everyone from Sofidel and Suzano who have spared no effort in organizing this wonderful moment and for inviting me to take place with you in this roundtable. On behalf of the Brazilian Institute of Development and Sustainability, IABS, I'd like to say that we feel honored to take part in this project, and we are humbled and thankful for the trust that was placed in us to deliver the bold results that we're seeking. IBS has been implementing projects in favor of local development on more equitable and more fair basis for 20 years now. This has meant almost 400 projects already. I've had the privilege of being around for 15 of these 20 years. And during this time, I've been able to learn a little bit about what works and what doesn't work so well in these initiatives that are aimed at reducing social inequalities, while at the same time promoting positive environmental impacts. Finding these best solutions that are really adapted to the specificities of each context is no simple matter. And we at IABS are very excited to contribute with some of our accumulated experience to this noble effort of creating a significant social and environmental benefit in one of the most threatened areas of native forest in Brazil, while at the same time, sorry.
Sorry, Eric. Yes, I was saying, considering your very long experience, what are the main challenges and the main difficulties in this kind of projects?
Basically, what we've seen, I had the opportunity to meet most of the leaders from the beneficiary associations. I was there with them last week, and we see that rural exodus is one of the main problems. We see that because most young people, due to a lack of opportunities for generation of income, they try to leave for the urban centers. This generates a problem both for the rural areas, because the average age has risen. Our average age for the beneficiaries is above 40 years. And also for the urban centers where there aren't as many opportunities as they expect. So we see that a demand for labor is very much a challenge, as well as machinery, because older people have a lot more trouble taking care of the agriculture, both for their own consumption and for production to generate income. And this, in an area that is threatened by an expanding agricultural frontier, can generate a barrier that is a very important challenge for the project to overcome.
Of what you've learned in these years with other projects, what is, in your opinion, the most important thing that you will, consider in this new project with Sofidel and Suzano?
I think of all the lessons that we've learned, we see that basically if we want to decelerate or reverse this trend of rural exodus, most of the work that we need to do is aimed at the young people. And we need to create opportunities for them that make staying in the rural areas attractive, instead of selling their land at very high prices to expanding frontiers. This is what we hope to do with this project, to create opportunities for them to generate income that will make staying in the rural areas possible and also desirable, because otherwise the corridor will be exposed. We're trying to create an ecological corridor that is protected, but if we don't work with the people who live near the corridor, this corridor will be exposed and will be vulnerable to expanding agricultural frontiers.
This is very important, Eric. When we talk about sustainability, we really talk about it a lot, and we sometimes find it hard to give substance to this word, and sometimes we need data. And how will you measure and certify your results?
Well, we have already met the company that was identified to carry out an independent evaluation and also an audit of all the activities. They will submit reports that will be certified, and these will be made public. And I hope everybody will have access to all this information. We really do believe strongly in the work that we are doing, and we want to give full transparency to everything that will be done.
Thank you. Let's thank Eric Sawyer, who is going to stay with us, because later there will be the chance to ask questions. So Eric will stay with us in case you have any questions out of curiosity. This being said, well, we will try to reach the heart of the Amazonia and talk to Emanuela Evangelista, our Italian biologist, who has been living there for 20 years. Emanuela, there you are. A big round of applause for you from Italy. Well, we want to celebrate your presence and also the connection, the Wi-Fi connection, which is helping us. So, Emanuela, where are you exactly? Well, first of all, good evening everyone. Rain has stopped, so it's really a miracle. And while it was raining, I couldn't really hear what you were saying, whereas now everything is perfect. So rain stopped and I hear you, and I hope you can hear me. It's a great pleasure to be with you today for this round table, and it's even a greater pleasure to take part in the round table from here. You were wondering where I am. I am in the heart of the forest. It is a remote forest area, a village, and the closest town is 400 kilometers away, and it is Manaus, which is the capital city of the state. This village is, let's say, one of the many that exists along the banks of the river. There are indigenous populations living here, people with whom we work with our association Amazônia Onlus. And as Eric was saying, we work with these people to, offer them alternative opportunities. Well, when you talk about the Amazonia, we see, areas that are extremely beautiful, luxurious, in a way, and we tend to forget the lives of the wildlife and the people who live there. How many are there? Well, this area is inhabited by 47 million people. So many lives, and the number is growing and keeps on growing. And so, as you were saying, it is very important to understand the context of this project and the fact that the area of Amazonia is inhabited. It's not empty. There are waters, there are trees, but there are also people, animals, and the forest people, who are traditional populations that are indigenous, or that, let's say, resulted from the colonization, and have been inhabiting these areas for thousands of years. Generally, the population is quite poor. More than half of the population lives below the poverty threshold. There are problems related to food safety, hygiene, and it tends to abandon, as Eric was saying, rural areas and forest areas and move to the urban centers, looking for some, quality of life that actually is not found in urban centers. And what happens? The forest is abandoned to itself, because we know that, the people living in the forest are the first guardians, the first defenders of the forest. And so this sort of migratory flow to the urban center is no good for the forest areas. You have been living there for 20 years, and at some point they mentioned this project to you, and you decided to take part. Why? Well, first of all, we need to understand the heterogeneity of the Amazonia. And in order to understand this, it is important to understand the size. This region is 1.5 million square meters. And there are areas that are very different one from the other. And we talk about, Amazonian forest, but we should say Amazonian forests because the biome which is there is the result of different ecosystems. There is a thick forest, like the one where I am, the mountain forest, there are fields, savannas, lots of different ecosystems. From a social point of view, the same thing happens. There is great heterogeneity, a great diversity. And when we say Amazonia, we should say Amazonias.
Per contestualizzare, c'è una Amazzonia forestale che è questa in cui sono io, Amazzonia foresta.
So we have the forest. This is the Amazon forest where I am now. Then we have the so-called Amazon forest under pressure with the risk of extinction. There's also a third Amazon basin, the so-called converted Amazon forest, where we have also agricultural fields. And we also have another one, which is the urban one, with hundreds of, small or mid-sized urban centers. So the situation is quite heterogeneous, very varied. It is important to carry out activities and actions which are diverse, very specific, very accurately, specifically made and conceived for specific actions, which is exactly what the project does. So we now work in a region which may be so far away from where I am now, so the context may be completely different. But once again, we have to take up, if you will, these scientific recommendations, and we need to answer these questions. So basically, this boils down to the following. We have to have a much better sustainable management of the productive areas. We also have to combat poverty. This is the second driver, which is so important. I keep reiterating this over and over again. This is important, fundamental to understand. We can offer environmental protection only if you combat poverty. Now, fighting against poverty, increasing the average revenue of local populations. Well, this is what makes the third action effective. The third action is the so-called, reforestation. Okay, so recreating the forest habitats. You can do this with the specific biodiversity-centric ecological corridors. So back to your question, this is the reason why we implement the project. It's, let's say, meets some scientific recommendations. It's a pilot project. It lays the foundation for so many actions and interventions which we believe in because they are absolutely necessary. And all of this is done with a specific, mindset. Okay, then, so social sustainability, and then it also brings about environmental sustainability. So to wrap up, Manuela, we may say that this is what the Amazon River and the Amazon Basin needs to protect its future, isn't it? Right, the Amazon Basin, to protect its future, needs this kind of actions, so very specific, tailor-made actions, many such actions. And at the same time, it requires, the involvement of every single sector or industry. The beauty of the project is the following. It puts together many different players. This is why we use the word together in the title of the project. So for the Amazon, it's so important that all the sectors of our society will be, working together. Private companies, the government, or the third sector, local populations involved in the project. Well, there's not just one single solution because exactly the problem is so complex. And, the scientific method, breaks down the problems in smaller fragments, which is exactly what we are doing. So we are breaking down the Amazon basin in many small Amazon basins, so to say. So this is what this region absolutely needs. Let me wrap up with a very final point. These interventions will be effective and sufficient, provided that these actions come with other changes. the changes in our world. I mean, from industrialized, developed countries, changes go hand in hand with strategies. These changes can be implemented by citizens, consumers, investors. I mean, citizens have to become more, responsible, and the awareness level has to become higher. You're right, and this is why we have this beautiful name to this project. I mean, together is the key word. Together with the word future. Do you want to comment this, Andrea? Now, I think there's a side effect in this project. I mean, the one concerning young people, because of course we are looking for, young people retention in local communities. This is really important. I'm also talking about personal experience. My son left my city, Lucca, and he now lives in Milan. So I'm really very, let's say, open and sensitive to this. But of course, we have to have this opportunity that has to be offered to young people. And, young people living close to their families, this is crucial. Once again, Emanuela, thank you so much. I hope you can stay virtually with us till the end. We will also have a final Q&A session with the audience, okay? So be ready and expect questions. Now, Paulo Borges. So you represent Suzano. Now, Suzano, as we keep repeating today, now this is a Brazilian cellulose pulp producer. So also Suzano is not new, let's say, to this kind of sustainability projects. Well, first of all, good evening, everyone. Good evening, Chiara.
Italian, so I'll switch to English. Yes, we do have experience. This is actually a core of our business model. So as Eric mentioned, and Andrea also a little bit touched the point, whenever we go to a region, we have a team that understands what is the need of this region and how are we going to interact with it. So projects try to understand what's going on. Give me a second. Sorry. So our team gets into the region and tries to understand the specific needs of communities and of the environment on that region. We have today interaction with over nearly 100 communities in the different places we operate, and we create tailor-made programs like this project is an example, so that with the main objective to empower the people to be self-sufficient. I think the beauty of all this is that it's not a welfare. We are teaching these people to be self-sufficient, and by consequence they will protect nature. And how does all this comes together with Suzano, and obviously as a large company? On top of what I mentioned, we made what we call the commitments to renewing life, which is a set of initiatives that we have, and amongst them I would emphasize biodiversity. So we will connect 500,000 hectares of fragmented corridors of 3 biomes in Brazil, and we will uplift 200,000 people from poverty by 2030, and we are on track. So my colleague Giordano from our social area, he likes to say it's not possible to have a rich plantation with poor people around it. And we have a long-term presence. So this interaction, sharing value, creating value with people is really core of what we do.
E quindi insomma a conferma ancora una volta di quello che ci hanno raccontato sia Eric che Emanuela, no? Non può esserci.
Exactly, so this confirms what Eric and Emanuela told us. So we want to protect nature, but we don't want to see poverty in the same communities. I know it's a big commitment in terms of biodiversity. How does a cellulose pulp producer work? So how can they protect the environment and the business at the same time?
Important, and I would like to take a moment to emphasize how is our business model. So core to what we do, as I said, is trees and the interaction with people. But it's very important to say every tree that goes to our production process is planted for this purpose on lands that were degraded or anthropized before Suzano had any influence on these lands. So on top of this, we have zero deforestation policy, and we set aside 40% of our lands for restoration and conservation. So this allows us to, these lands, our eucalyptus plantation, are intertwined with these conservation and restoration areas that allows biodiversity to flourish on these regions. So this is how we interact, and this is how we operate everywhere we go, and it's what is core to our competitiveness. Today, just to put some numbers, and this is something we're very proud, we plant 1.2 million trees a day. I repeat, every day we plant 1.2 million trees. And today we manage 1.6 million hectares in Brazil, plus 1 million hectares of conservation, 1.6 million of plantations, and 1 million hectares of conservation lands. And our products that come from these productive, sustainable plantations, they are, like as Sofidel produces, the tissue and other products that are on our day-to-day lives.
Beh, sono numeri veramente impressionanti ed è un modello di produzione ormai rodato e per voi.
Well, this is really, really impressive numbers, so it is a successful model. Andrea told us that this proposal actually came from you, from Suzano, so why?
He was very kind. This was a teamwork.
Thank you.
It was more on him than me. No, it's Sofidel is an amazing benchmark to us, and what I would really emphasize, as Andrea said, we are long-term partners, and this is the key, long-term. I think that the long-term approach of this relationship matches completely with what is needed to change the reality in the Amazon region, in people and environment. It's not something you do in a year. It is long-term, and Sofidel is a reference on this. Sofidel inspires Suzano. I was very impressed since the beginning when I saw the first approach of Sofidel many years ago to sustainability, and the company has been very consistent on this. And again, it's a big inspiration. So for me, being here, seeing this project, this team coming together with IABS, Amazônia Onlus, is a dream coming true. Because I'm sure, as Andrea said, this is going to set the stage for way bigger projects and really doing the right thing on solving the issue in the long term.
Grazie Paolo, insomma, è sempre bello, no? Vedere l'entusiasmo e la soddisfazione.
Thank you so much. Always very nice, to see the satisfaction and the passion of those who work so much in order to start with such a huge project. It will have a huge impact on the life of people. So, Andrea, back to you. Now, of course, Suzano told us why they chose Sofidel. So Paulo has been excellent in talking about the production model, their behavior, and I guess that this is the reason why you have decided eventually to accept. For us as well, this is the natural, if you will, conclusion of many years of partnerships and collaboration. I have to say that, this partnership, if you will, can be further integrated into a process which is broader, wider, and this is my, personal result. The collaboration and solidarity in the supply chain. Now, when I reached, my current position, so in the purchasing department, I said, well, we have to, let's say, to reduce as much as possible the reputational risk, which is based on unfit, suppliers, because some of them didn't comply with Sofidel regulations. I think that this task evolved. There was a sort of a development, so it was not longer a reputational issue. It was a mission. We tried to share, best practices, our experience, our expertise, our projects and solutions with all of our suppliers. So it is not by chance that some years ago we started getting, the certification from SGS. So this is an audit company, a top audit company, and it's great to have this certificate. So our purchasing systems are in compliance with 2400 ISO guideline, which is the guideline for sustainable purchases or supplies. So once again, communication is always so important, and all of my colleagues in the communication department tell me that they created an ecosystem made of different tools. And I'm inviting you to visit our website. So Sofidel Sustainable Procurement, now this is exclusively dedicated to suppliers. We also have a magazine or a newsletter that you will probably find with my beautiful face in the first page. So let's say we are colleagues. I mean, I also, publish magazines. So Paulo, I'm also a journalist and a reporter. So also in the newsletter, we talk about the best practices of our suppliers. We talk about the important messages. Now, this year, I would like to do the following. I'd like to take into account the consequences of climate changes, especially on our industry. So we also have to understand how to avoid this issue. There's another thing I'm so proud. This is the award for the most sustainable suppliers. So we give an award that we don't offer a trip or a journey, as you said before. So we have a beautiful trophy, if you will, for the most sustainable suppliers. And this is a physical, tangible award. We give an award and we also assess suppliers thanks to our platform. Yes, we assess them. We keep them, monitored. For example, yesterday, while driving, one supplier called me on my phone, and I told my team to stop the ongoing supplies and orders because this supplier didn't renovate the certification. So I insisted a lot, and then I said that we can't, purchase any longer. So the supplier has reactivated the certificate right now, so immediately. We have this kind of strong commercial power. This means that my suppliers can be measured and assessed. So this tool measures performances, it measures you, you can make a comparison with many other companies in the same industry. So this is a peer-to-peer comparison. You can also make a comparison with the entire Sofidel, suppliers team. Suppliers know if they have to improve or not. More than 80% of the costs paid by Sofidel comes from suppliers that have a very high score. So the score is between 0 and 100. So they did more than 80. So the award or the prize we give, so not just a trophy, not just a public acknowledgement, but we really want to favor and help suppliers who have a high standard and the most sustainable suppliers ever. So it's a great monitoring and control of your supply chain. This means that you have created this wonderful group. This is also a virtual pilot project that will last, I'm sure, in the future. And quite probably we will also monitor it. So in 1 year, we will be back to you, Andrea, and Paulo. So we will meet again to see what will have happened.
Avevo paura di questa domanda. Avevo paura di questa domanda. No, scherzo. Beh, innanzitutto spero che non ci troveremo qui, ma ci troveremo magari a casa di Emanuela.
Well, first of all, I hope that we will meet at Emanuela's place to see the tangible results that we will be able to achieve. And so this is a wish, and I hope to see you all in 1 year in Brazil. Will you be there? That would be wonderful. I'm asking to you, Paulo is going to pay for everyone. Paulo will pay also for those who are online.
This is really very important because we are also always very proud to bring people to visit what we see and what we do in Brazil. Because one thing is you hear about it, the other thing is you see it. As Andrea said, he visited us, and obviously things change when that happens. So really it's an invitation. Come and see what we do, and we are open to listen, to improve. This is a constant improvement.
Io e sarò anche onorato e orgoglioso di.
And I'm really honored, and I would be proud to meet all the people, maybe not all the 1,400 families, but all the people that we are supporting and helping not with, just flows of money, but with real help to build their future forever. And so what do you think will make you more proud? And this is a question for you, but also for Paulo. What do you think will make you proud more than anything else, apart from working with me?
That makes me proud every day. Well, I won't differ from Andrea's first point. I think helping 1,400 people to be lifted from poverty is much bigger than the number, because people will have opportunities. People will go to school. We don't know how one person of these, the change this person can do to the world. So what I will be proud is when I see, I think, opening a world of opportunity for these people. This is priceless. I will be really happy.
Così, è seminare e poi sarà vedere che cosa crescerà.
Well, it's like seedling something and see what will grow from our commitment. So we talked about the great project of Sofidel and Suzano, and as we promised, well, we leave space to your questions. First of all, the questions here in the room. Don't be shy. There will be a prize trip to the Amazon forest. I wanted to ask for a clarification. How is this biodiversity corridor exactly? Are there, species of plants or wildlife that are more functional? Are you going to plant some trees, or are there already trees? And how will these families become like the guardians and have some sort of mentorship? How will they be involved and how will they act, let's say? Who's going to answer? Who do you want? Eric? Maybe Eric, who is in charge? Okay, so let's go back to Brasilia, if Eric is still with us, if you listen to the question. Eric?
Yes, I heard the question. Thank you for the question. And yes, the idea of the corridor. In Brazil, most rural properties have to leave a part of the forest standing without touching it. But these islands of preserved forest are usually scattered. They're not connected. And this means, for example, for an animal that needs mobility, that needs to hunt for a living, this is a big challenge. And the idea that Suzano had, which is very interesting, is to create a corridor by connecting all of these fragments of forests together to create over 200 kilometers of connected forests. And this is, of course, in areas that have different degrees of degradation. Some people will have to shift the preserved forest from one part of their rural property to another. Others have different degrees of degradation. In some cases, it may be enough to just put a fence around the trees and let them grow by themselves. In other cases, it may be necessary to take more specific actions like planting new trees. So this is one of the components of the project, is to really identify what degree of degradation is in each part of the corridor and to be able to connect this. And the second part of the question is, how will the people become guardians of this? Is really just by having them understand the importance of having this corridor, and by generating income for them, by reversing this rural exodus, we'll be sure that their practices, which are more in line with environmental conservation, remain in the field, in the rural areas, and they won't have to leave for the cities. So their activities that are already in line with conservation will be able to continue. Basically, this is the idea of the project.
I think just to emphasize in a point that Eric put, it's this generating income to people is key, because then it's exactly when, as he said, they stay because they have an opportunity and they become natural guardians of the area. And then the corridors, it's exactly, it provides biodiversity, a flow, how to get food and how to connect everything, and then biodiversity by itself grows in the future. So it's this synergic action that really will result long-term gains.
Grazie Eric e grazie Paolo per aver risposto, credo, alla domanda.
Thank you, Eric, and thank you, Paolo, for answering the questions. If there are no other questions in the room, well, there is one, actually. I wanted to ask Paolo from Suzano. You plant 1.2 million trees per day, right? And how many do you cut down? How many trees? And what kind of trees do you plant? I maybe heard eucalyptus, but I'm not sure. I wasn't following the translation. I'm not sure, because as we know, eucalyptus has some problems in terms of water consumptions and others.
Okay. It's, well, we have a ratio of approximately 60-40. So 60% of our lands are what we productive land. So we plant, we harvest, and we replant. 40% are restoration and conservation, and our planting goes on both sides. So this is, I think, the first part. Yes, today our productive, the 60% is 100% eucalyptus. And then I will give a little bit of context of eucalyptus. I think it's interesting, and it touches your second part of the question, maybe even going beyond water. We've been studying this thoroughly since the 60s, and what is the best, the most resilient species and that best interacts. Because one thing is important. Core to our competitiveness is the location of where we plant. And therefore, we are long-term, as I said, we stay in the land for long-term. So we need to ensure that soil, biodiversity, communities, they have harmony, and they stay, and they can be there productively for the very long term. As I said, we're planting eucalyptus since the 60s. By our studies that were audited even by universities and science, eucalyptus consumes the same amount of water as native forest. So at the same land, the consumption of water is similar. However, with eucalyptus, you produce much more mass of wood, because again, it's a more resilient species, and that's how that's one of the reasons why we chose. So, just as a reference, the savanna, which is one of the biomes we're in Brazil, the native forest, for the same amount of wood, it requires 4 times more water. Obviously, on absolute numbers, as I said, it's the same because you have more mass, more eucalyptus being planted. And also, we find some very interesting things on biodiversity and on other initiatives we take.
Grazie. Benissimo, allora, in attesa di capire se ci sono altre domande.
Very well. So I think that we can also listen to the questions that arrived on Zoom. What will be the next update on this project? The question is. Well, official updates, also by Bureau Veritas, will be published every year in December. The first one being in December 2023, when the first results arrive, and the first results will be, let's say, modest, because they are the first. And then in December 2024, there will be, we hope, more important results. I think that the second question, Andrea, is for you, because they are asking, why have you decided to have this project in Brazil and not in Europe? Well, let me say that there is no specific reason. We chose Suzano because Suzano is a strategic supplier, and so we have had a very long commercial collaboration. And we were already talking about common projects with Suzano, so maybe this is one of the reasons. And if we consider our supply, more than 50% of our supplies come from South America. So this is another reason. But, you know, we are always open, and we are working with other suppliers, supplying pulp and others on other projects. So this is a pilot project, and so there might be others also in Europe. Why not? The next question is for both of you, I think, because they are asking, have you been, let's say, on the field to see the areas that are involved? This is a question for both of you.
Personally, myself, to these specific areas, not, but I have been to many projects in many areas of similar initiatives.
I haven't been yet, but there is a Suzano's team who is always there on the field. Maybe Eric. And, well, I am really going to go there as soon as the first results arrive, because I'm really curious about this project and I want to meet the people who are part of it. I don't know if we can go back to Eric to, you know, also say something to him, considering that Eric and its association will be on the field implementing the project. Did you hear the question, Eric? Because you know these territories maybe better than others. What can you say?
Yes, I had the pleasure, like I said, of meeting leaders of all the associations that we will be working with in the project there last week. As you heard from Emanuela, rains are a big challenge, and we were unsure if we would be able to hold the event that we had planned last week, because one of the main roads simply collapsed from so much rain. Previously, I tried to visit one of the communities. We drove for over 4 hours on dirt roads, and we weren't able to reach, in the end, the community that we wanted to visit. Also because of the rains that had made a river overflow and had cut off access to the community. So logistics, we've already identified, will be a big challenge for commercialization of the products that we're hoping to incentivize with the project. But we're also very open. We have an office space there. We already put some beds in the office. So anybody who wants to come and visit will be happy to assist with all the logistical arrangements. It'll be interesting to get to see the local reality. As Paulo said, it's very different to read about it, to see a video, and to actually be there and meet the people who live this reality in their everyday life.
Thank you, Eric.
Really would like to congratulate you, because it was very difficult to do this, and you, regardless of the challenges, were able to kick off the project. So really, congratulations.
Eric è il nostro uomo alla Havana, definitivamente.
Il vostro uomo all'Amazzonia.
All'Amazzonia, sì.
Well, he is our man. Eric is our man. So thank you very much, Eric, also for being with us. Goodbye. Now, let's go and see if Emanuela is still with us. I don't know if the rains have stopped. There are some difficulties. I don't know if Emanuela is with us. Yes, there she is. Hi, Emanuela, and thank you for staying with us. Well, the rain allowed for me to stay, and so I take the opportunity to say goodbye. I don't know if you can hear me. Okay, you can. So thank you once again. And I want to underline once again what everyone has said. The problem of habitat fragmentation has been mentioned, and I would like to stress this point. This is something crucial from a biological point of view, and it is fundamental to have continuity in the territories. The Brazilian legislation protecting the forest, as Eric was saying, creates this habitat fragmentation, even if not deliberately. And so in Pará and Maranhão, there is, you know, a lot of forest, but it is fragmented and there are agricultural fields in between. And it must be connected, otherwise the wildlife and the plants cannot flow and live there in the most effective way. So filling those gaps between those islands of forests can be carried out through plants, but also natural landscape that can be productive, going back to the idea of an economic return of income. So there is this agroforestation process that aims at imitating the structure of the forest with plants and trees that will also produce income for the local communities. So I just wanted to stress the importance of the project and what we are doing. We strongly believe in it. So thank you, everyone, from the heart of the forest, and I'll be waiting for you here. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much, Emanuela, for your words, and thank you for joining us. And so we are getting to the end of our appointment. We hope that you got passionate in this project, as all the protagonists here are. I was really, really fascinated by this project, and I really hope that we can meet up here next year once again.